Dude, been looking forward to this for a while. You're involved in a lot of stuff. I'm involved in a lot of stuff. I have my own views on time management and prioritization. What are some things that you do to handle it all?
Yeah, I think the absolute probably most critical thing is operate out of my calendar.
Yeah.
If it's not on my calendar, it's not real.
Yeah.
And sometimes I forget to put it in there and somebody's like, hey, are we doing this thing? I'm like, sorry, it's not on my calendar. Even if it doesn't get on there, it doesn't happen.
We've talked about this before as well, etiquette for calendar invites. So my view on etiquette is I'm asking you to do something and you agree and I've proposed where we go. It is incumbent upon me as the person who requested the meeting to send that calendar invite. When people do it the other way, it just, it chaps me up.
Yeah, I think that I'm okay if you're like, hey, can you send an invite? It wouldn't drive me crazy. I personally just want to make sure it gets on the calendar. I don't get too kind of wrapped around the axle on that. But yeah, I think if I'm asking somebody to do something, I typically will say, let me send the invite just because I know if it doesn't go on my calendar, it will literally never happen. So the most important thing to me is getting it on the calendar.
Yeah. Now, delegation-wise, does somebody, does a team member, a VA, or maybe like an executive assistant type person, does someone send that on your behalf, or are you in your own calendar sending all this stuff?
I've had a VA assistant who was doing that for a while, but I've been doing it recently myself. It takes like 2 seconds, so It's not the end of the world, but I do need an executive assistant to help me organize and make sure that my calendar is tight. Yeah,
I was joking with my team earlier this week. I was like, the majority of communication for me is just literally screenshots. like change this, move this,
add this, please add this to my calendar.
Yeah,
and what we would do is I had a Voxer channel, so that, every little bit matters.
Oh, it adds
So
up.
like, I don't listen to voicemails. Why? Because it takes too much time. It's like, you want me to know something, you send me a text.
Yeah.
And then I'll decide whether or not we need to have a phone call or some type of follow-up. The worst thing in the world is when somebody says, hey, I need to talk to you.
Is this serious?
With no context. Because here's what happens is I want to help you.
Yeah.
And if you sent me that, I think it's urgent, no matter what. Somebody's not going to give me context and they need to talk to me. I assume you need to talk to me. And I'm going to take my entire day usually and potentially reprioritize really important stuff because you said you need to talk to me.
And you made yourself available.
And I will make myself available. A better way to be respectful of somebody's time is to say, hey, I need to talk to you about this, this, and this. Like, what is it? And allow me an opportunity to prioritize when the best time to fit that in the schedule is based on how important I perceive it to be.
Yeah. I do it a little different. I want to know. Like, I don't like the, the foreshadowing? Like, we need to talk. No, I want to know what the topic is.
I do too.
Yeah.
I want to know exactly what you want. I literally despise when somebody says, can you talk? What are you doing tomorrow at this time? Like, don't send me that. Just tell me, what are you trying to achieve? And then I'll prioritize my day around that.
I imagine you're similar in the way I go about this, which is like when you meet at a networking event, right? Can we meet up next week and go grab lunch? I'm like, what specifically do you want to talk about? The answer, we can, but it's not just like a blind get together. Let's have a focused topic that we're gonna talk about. Is it your title company? Is it ground up deals in Tampa? Is it multifamily value add syndications? There's so many different things. Like, I want to make sure I'm budgeting enough time so you want something of me. Like, I want to deliver that value. Let's make sure we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah, this is like my favorite thing. Because I'll just go, this is what I'll typically say to somebody who's like, hey, can I pick your brain? Can we meet up? Are you available for coffee? I'll say, hey, it usually works best if you've got like 2 or 3 topics that are specific that I can help you solve problems.
Yeah.
If you can give those to me, then we can schedule a time. That way we're not wasting each other's time. We can be as efficient as possible.
Yeah. It's so cool to be able to share this on social media or wherever we're going to post this, because we've talked about this so many times. Yeah, in the years leading up.
I just got a text message that says, are you available Monday 12 to 1:30? No context.
Okay, this is a good example. So you prefer to just, all right, we could talk about this whole thing. So
Yeah.
you're gonna take the Bill Allen approach of like you just hand your phone over, and then an assistant gets into it, and then she just responds for you.
Yeah, I mean, she can see my schedule, and she
Yeah.
can say, just this is where I think people miss. Don't ever take anything at face value. Like if I'm your assistant, and somebody says they want to talk to you from 12 to 12:30, I'll say, what's the topic? What are we getting into?
Yeah.
And then I'll be able to effectively prioritize that schedule. So in this case, Heidi is going to look at it and go, probably look at my calendar, see if there's even time available, and ask Ryan, hey, what exactly do you want to do at that time?
Yeah, so this is for Title then.
Yeah, so this is Ryan from
Yeah,
Title.
so this is the perfect example right here. So let's say like you're a sponsor. You and Ryan are a sponsor for our event, which we put on this week. Let's say I wanted to talk to you about the 2025 sponsorship plan that we're going to roll out. We are also, separate from that, we're investing together in a multifamily project in North Carolina.
Yeah.
One is way more time sensitive than the other.
Right.
2025 is not for like 5 more months.
Yep.
Versus this multifamily deal is closing in 2 weeks. So like that's why context is so important, because it's like, dude, we need to talk about the multifamily deal. Like that needs to happen within 3 years.
Right now, like I need to answer that. Yeah. So I know if he says, hey, I want to talk to you about that multifamily deal, like even Ryan, then I know that's something we got to get answers to pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So that's a conversation I need to have, and I'll probably reprioritize something else.
Yeah. Yeah. One more thing that I think a way I go about like time prioritization, this is maybe an unpopular belief, but I try to be cognizant of the things I say no to. And like that list has to grow if you're going to start saying yes to more things to grow your business. And it doesn't necessarily mean saying no to like people or appointments. It might saying, here's a no actually for me. Right now, all year I've just done meal prep. Like I've cooked less than 5 meals at my house. I like it, saves me time. It's super convenient. Like I can just bump that thing in the microwave and be ready to go. So that's like something I say no to. That saves me time and it's worth it to me. That might not be good for everybody, but as I'm trying to deliver like a better use of, escalate like the time value of money of my own time, then you have to say no to some things.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate too, and it's like it actually pains me when people reach out, and I have a personality where I want to help everybody.
Yeah.
Which is to my detriment. Like, I genuinely feel pulled to help that person, but I have to make hard decisions. It's usually people asking for my time that I have to say no to. So like you have a great community here in Tampa. You're serving all these people who are paying to play, who are committed to growing their business, and you're committed to helping them. So those people have invested in you, and you're investing in them. So when people come, and I have a similar situation. So people outside of that, though, I can't give them time like I can give the people who are paying to play.
It's not fair.
It's not fair to them, and I'm taking away from somebody who has actually committed to talking to somebody who might commit, who might be interested in doing something. Yeah. And you know this as well as I do. A lot of people, they see what you're doing, and they're like, how do I do that? I want to do that. And a lot of folks jump in, and they quickly realize, oh, it is simple, but it's not easy. This is actually pretty hard, and it can be a lot of stress, and it can be a lot of pressure on you, and then they veer off that path very quickly. Yeah. So now you invested all this time in that person just for them to realize, hey, this isn't actually for me.
Dude, that resonates with me so well, and this is where it really it really hit me in the face. I remember meeting with somebody, it was probably a couple years ago, after an elite investor event, and they're like, I've got problem XYZ. I was like, oh, I've seen this before. You need to do ABC. And they came back to me like 6 weeks later, and they're like, hey, XYZ didn't get solved. I was like, what did you do? They're like, I did DEF. I was like, but what? Like, I gave you, but like, do ABC. Yeah. They're like, well, I guess I just thought I could just do it like my way. I was like, the only way to truly help people is to know they're committed to the result. I was like, you actually just like wanted my support for your solution. You didn't want the solution. You wanted support. Yeah. Like it was a powerful like
emotional support. Like I'm in this, it's hard. Just tell me it's going to be okay. I mean, sometimes I'll just ask people. Like I do this with my wife all the time where it's like, do you just want me to listen? Is this one of those situations where You just need me to support you and hear you out, or
Yeah.
do you want me to solve the problem you're about to tell me? Because that's where I will go. He'll tell me a problem, and I'll say, here's what I believe the solution is.
You can provide either.
And it's frustrating when you don't implement that solution. I'm like, dude, I just told you the exact path to solve that problem. And some people really don't want that. They might think they do, but a lot of times they just want to have community around them to support them through a challenge.
Yeah.
Which is valid too.
Yeah. That's reasonable. Strategies where it's not necessarily just like hiring and delegating. You talked about your calendar already. What are some other strategies you use for all these things?
Yeah, I think I have obviously multiple businesses going on with important things on varying timelines. So typically what will happen is sometimes like all 3 or 4 things will come to a head.
Yeah. At the same
And then
time.
you'll have massive pressure to produce across multiple things. And when that happens to me, I literally get into a quiet place. Typically in the morning, I'll wait for the morning when my mind is clear and fresh.
Yeah.
I'll just go to a dry erase board and I'll write down everything I think I need to get done, and I'll prioritize and execute. So I'll literally write it up there. I'll circle this thing, then I'll circle that thing and say, these are the things I have to get done.
Yeah.
And sometimes those are hard decisions too. Like I literally will have to be okay with something that's really important just not being done. Or be able to push that to somebody else and say, hey, look, I got to trust you to get this done.
Yeah. I'm similar. I try to be mindful of like, even though it's important, what's the urgency of it? So if I can push that to later, but there's something that's maybe a little less important, but very, very urgent and it does need to get done, I just may not enjoy doing it. Like, try to do that first. Yeah. Delegation. Obviously, delegation is important. I think we have similar views on delegation, but we're unique in our own ways. How do you decide what you're going to delegate and what things you're going to do yourself?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think because we are unique, you first have to know like what are you good at and what moves the needle for your goals. Mm-hmm. So for me, I'm a good people person. I'm a good connector. So oftentimes if it's like a big relationship or a connection that I need to service, like I can't delegate that out.
Yeah.
Example is I had a call with an investor in our market yesterday who's potentially interested in working with our title company. Mm-hmm. I have a personal connection with that person. I need to be the one to connect with them, set them up with the team, and hand that off. So that's like an hour on my schedule. I can't really delegate that. But one of the things people are important. When we talk about delegating inherently means you're giving that trusted thing that you need to get done to somebody who's working with you. Yeah. I think what's important in this process is that the people that work with you understand basically 3 buckets. Like, what can I do and I don't need to tell Adam? What can I do and I just need to let him know I did it? And what can only Adam do? Mm-hmm. Like, what are the things that only he can make a decision on?
Yeah.
Right? So if you have those 3 buckets kind of outlined with the common tasks that happen through your lens and your team knows what those are, that's really powerful. Because a lot of times when you have somebody that you can delegate to, early on, it's actually more work than just doing it yourself a lot of times.
Way more work, yeah.
Because they don't know exactly what you want. It's hard to decipher your thoughts. They have to figure out how you would do it. They don't want to make a mistake, and it's all good intention.
Yeah.
So I think just investing some time, some critical thought into those 3 buckets, like what are the things that we do pretty routinely? Like this is, only I can do this, only I can make the decision on this. It's a needle mover. You can make a decision, but you have to let me know you did that because I need awareness, or I don't even need to know about this. You can just execute without me.
Yeah. Now, will you actually literally list those things out? Like for Titan Title, are those things listed out to where you have to make the decision? I'm curious, like, to use an example maybe.
Yeah. So, I'll use Blackjack as an example. Okay. Usually the things that I'm going to make a decision on relate to a dollar, right? Like what's going to cost me money or what's going to make me money.
Yeah.
So in Blackjack, if we're going to decide an exit strategy that's purchase something. Mm-hmm. So right now my team is doing deals. I have no idea. Like they're just wholesaling properties or novating properties. But if we're going to buy it and we're going to bring in leverage or debt, like that's something I'm going to make the decision on. I'm going to see that deal. I'm going to look at the underwriting. I'm going to make sure it fits our buy box, and then I'm going to say, yeah, let's go ahead and move forward with that deal.
And that's because there's a little bit higher degree of risk.
Higher degree of risk.
Yeah. But then also
that we as the business owners are typically the ones assuming.
Yeah, but then also no risk, no reward. Like you're incurring the higher likelihood for reward after you mitigate that risk.
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
It's got to be outsized, advantaged.
Yeah. We don't have like a defined list of what those things are, but I think that has come with working together and developing that like over experience. My rule, like my guideline with my team is if it's outward communication with anybody that's not internal to our team, like I at least need to be aware of it, because what I don't want is somebody to come up to me at an event, they're like, oh, you know what, we have that thing coming up. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And then I just look like a fool, or I look like I don't care about the relationship or whatever, but I do. I just didn't know about it. But yeah, internal to the team, I'm like, y'all, it's like, stop including me on so much stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I will also say, like, you're probably one of the most optimized and efficient operators that I know.
I appreciate it.
Like, seriously, man. Like, you're systematic thinker. Like, you are very dialed in on the details. I'm a far less detailed oriented person than you, but I'll go fast and break things.
Yeah.
Which, you know, is why I have to have people who have details around me.
Yeah.
Like, even in my personal life, my wife is a extremely detail-oriented person, and I get that question. It's like, how can you do so much? It's like, well, I carry almost no mental load at my house because my wife is like, I just upload my thoughts in her cloud and she's got them in a Rolodex. So that's an advantage that I have, is she's extremely detail-oriented. I have people in all of our business, like my whole title company is full of high detail-oriented folks. Mm-hmm. Like they live for checklists and follow the steps.
Yeah.
Which is great because they can slow me down when I'm going too fast and say, hey, we need to fix the system, or hey, we've got a really good dialed-in process. We're ready for more. We can take more capacity.
Yeah. I still break things sometimes, by the way.
Yeah, I know you do. I know you do.
By the way, how detail and process oriented I am, that's the product of having two parents that are civil engineers.
Yeah, well, exactly, for sure. Yeah, you're engineer trained, your family's engineers, you guys are, you know, there's a system process for things. It makes sense.
Yeah. All right, so when somebody is in that space and they are still doing the 9 to 5 and they do want to pursue some real estate on the side, how can someone manage it all?
Yeah, so I had a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. and was able to still start a business. I think there's two things to it. Number one, I was in California. My business was in Florida. So I could get up at 4 a.m. in Florida, and it was in California, and it was 7 a.m. in Florida. So I could start working before I actually had to go to work. And I could get 3 hours of really focused time in, whether that was calling sellers or whatever I needed to do. So I had an advantage there. But I quickly ran out of capacity. Like, I could only do so much. So I had to do two things. Number one, I needed a shortcut on the pathway. Like, I was just kind of fumbling through it. So I joined a community that allowed me to say, okay, here's the blueprint. Now I can just follow it. So I bought Speed.
And that was through 7-figure?
That was through 7-figure flipping.
Which you're now the CEO of.
Which I'm now the CEO of. Yeah. So I literally joined that community. I bought Speed. I just did exactly what they told me to do, which gave me a ton of momentum. It wasn't easy. It took more time than I thought it would, of course. But that was like really critical. I bought Speed. The second thing I did was, because I joined that community, I realized the barrier to getting another person to help you is extremely low. Like, you can get outsourced, offshores people to come work for you, virtual assistants, for between $4 and $8 an hour, right? $1,000 a month. And if you have a W-2 job, you have a massive advantage. You have security, you have money coming in, you have the ability to spend money. Whereas if somebody's trying to build this with no job, then they're at a higher risk. All they have is sweat equity they can change.
You know, I hear that you're talking about getting up at 4, and I hear you talk about an advantage getting up at 4. My big principle on this is not going to be easy, and to get an uncommon result, you're going to have to take uncommon action. I see so many people like, I really want to do real estate investing, and they take no action. It's just a fleeting thought, and they're not actually the type of people that are going to commit to doing it and get the result. So I hear you talk about that as an advantage. A lot of people would look at that as an obstacle. It's pretty powerful stuff, man.
I think the other thing I specifically learned that's not necessarily time management, but it's definitely mindset, was the people who would attach themselves to the outcome were almost always the people who could never win. And what I mean by that is, let's say they wanted to do real estate and buy some rentals or make $100,000 over the next year, doing that activity. Well, they were attached to that outcome, but they weren't attached to the activity it took to achieve the outcome.
Yeah.
So you or we assume we're going to get results faster. So if those people are looking at the outcome, the result only, they start doing it, they hit challenges, obstacles, roadblocks, they find out it's not easy, and they're going, oh, I can't do that. James must be able to do that because he has some type of advantage I don't, but I can't do it, right? And the reality is they're attached to this outcome rather than the activity that all these people who have success have committed to do just longer than everybody else.
I talk about that all the time with people who they mention to me, they're like, hey, I might be interested in joining the mastermind group, the local Tampa community that we have. And we get on the phone and I learn more about their goals and challenges and stuff. And I always say to them, are you interested? Are you committed? They're not the same. An interested person is going to do things while they feel good. And as the first opportunity where things start to go not their way, they're going to stop. It's inconvenient. But a committed person only accepts results. I'm like so big on that. And I'm not a big NBA guy or anything, but like Michael Jordan, do you think when Michael Jordan was like, I'm going to be the best ever at basketball, do you think he went out and like tested foul shots? Do you think he was like, I'm interested in like shooting some foul shots today? He's like, no, dude, I'm going to practice basketball until I cannot lose. I'm just going to be the best. Like that stuff fires me up.
And I mean, that's a common trait from anybody who's elite.
Yeah. The elite investors.
The elite investors. Well, it's totally fair, man. It's like you have to be committed to doing the boring thing until you achieve the result, period. Like, follow one focus. Like, I was just talking to somebody about this. Like, you have to focus. Follow one course until successful.
Yeah. What did somebody tell me the other week? I was like, man, this is so good. It was like the success seen by millions is predicated by the success, or no, what is it? The work seen by millions is predicated by the work that no one sees. Right. Like the early mornings that you did, kind of working it out, finding extra capacity, probably took some losses. I just literally, on Wednesday next week, I'm taking a $20,000 loss on a deal. So people see what we're up to. They're like, oh man, you must be so lucky. Like there's challenges. There's real challenges that affect your life in this business.
I'm telling you.
And if you don't have the approach of persistence and discipline, consistency, commitment, I don't think you'll go as far.
Absolutely not.
Which, by the way, is why I think military people do so well, because we have been conditioned over a long period of time to work very long, demanding, extraneous, like straining environments with very little reward. Which is what it's going to take.
Yeah. The activity. We were literally forced to do the activity, and whatever the result was, the result didn't matter. You were doing the activity. Yeah. Right. And it was always until, I totally agree with that. The military people, they just seem to go so fast because they don't think about things in time. They're just executing until mission accomplishment. If that means I'm up till midnight every night for 7 days in a row and I'm up at 4 a.m., that's the cost of doing business.
Yeah. I think that plus risk mitigation. Like you see the result, good or bad, of risk mitigation throughout your career in the military. And so I don't think that being in the military puts you in a position in real estate where you can codify every risk very quickly, very correctly, but it helps you avoid like major missteps early, because you're like, all right, what's the thing that in the military, like get people killed? Okay, unfortunately, that's a reality of our occupation. Okay, what's the equivalent of that in real estate? Let me make sure I just at least don't do that.
Yeah, losing money, basically. Yeah. And the thing is like, you probably won't be perfect. You probably will. If you stay in the game long enough, you'll lose money on something. Yeah. The goal is to have outsized returns on everything else. Like, know you're taking the swings. You might take a loss, from unforeseen conditions, but you learn from it, and you continue to go after the outsized results.
Go after it. Love it. Love it, man.
So do you think personal strength matters when it comes to picking a real estate strategy for yourself? He's very detail oriented. He picked going straight into the development side of real estate, buying, renting it, house hacking, doing the number stuff. You are a people's person, so you went into wholesale, which is a lot of people activity. You got to talk to a lot of people on the phone to have any kind of success. You both achieved success. Do you think when it comes to a new investor getting into the game of real estate, they should assess their personal strengths first before deciding what strategy to go for, or just find whoever is closest to them and kind of like, if you're closest to me, but I'm detail oriented, but you're the real estate investor that I know that's close to me and successful, I just do whatever strategy you say. Like, how do you pick strategy?
I mean, obviously, if you pick something that aligns with your strengths, it's going to be a smoother path. But here's the truth. The truth is, if you're truly committed to it, you can make it happen. So if I looked across all the niches in the real estate industry and I said, this niche gets me to the thing that I'm committed to doing the fastest and gives me the best outsized return, I'm willing to make myself be able to do that. And I think that's a misnomer, is like, oh, I'm not detail oriented, so like I shouldn't go put a Gantt chart together, or I shouldn't go put a scope of work together. Like, no, I can absolutely do that if it means I'm going to win. Like, I've been doing incredibly detail oriented things for 20 years in the military and operating at a high level, even though that's not my true personality. Like, that's not who I am. I still was able to succeed in that. You can still succeed. Should you align with your strengths? For sure. Should you delegate off your weaknesses? Absolutely. But the world's imperfect. If you want to win, you need to find a way to get there.
I have an example for this. I believe growth starts with awareness. I'm not a natural connector. It's crazy, right? Like, we just had an elite investor event, and I'm grateful for it. I'm very proud of it. It humbles me every time. But we had like 300 to 400 people at that event, and 2 years ago there were 10. Maybe 3 years ago there were 10. And I'm not a natural connector, so I think for me, that's not one of my strengths, but I can turn the volume up on that trait for like a period of time to do what needs to be done, and also empower my team, who are some of the more natural connectors than I am, so that they can fulfill their role in getting us to that result. So, I mean, basically exactly what you said, but unless, I guess, I come back to and also bring others around me who are good at my limitation, then I wouldn't have had the right frame of mind to actually grow.
Yeah. Well, what's really interesting about this is, for people who are committed, like you talked about, if your goal is to win, if you define winning as part of that being the component of the meetup, which was amazing, by the way, there were literally 300 or 400 people in that room, and now you're in this social setting that is really not the most comfortable thing for you, doesn't matter, because your definition of winning, that is part of it.
Yeah.
So, and for you to grow what you're growing, for you to achieve what you're trying to achieve, to make the impact on these people here in Tampa that you're making, that is part of winning, and that is why you can do it at a high level.
Yeah.
Even if it's not your natural thing. So I think, to your point a couple questions ago, was like the difference between being interested and being committed. Like, you have a commitment that you define as winning. Therefore, everybody looks and goes, James is a social guy. Look at him. He's on the stage. He's quarterback in the meetup. He's like, he's Mr. I don't know, just like the most magnanimous guy. And I mean, you're probably drained at the end of that day.
Dude, I had a 24-hour headache.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you did a great job. Like, everybody thinks like James is the big social guy who loves people, which you do love people, but being in that room drained you.
Yeah. I much prefer like small interaction type stuff. I want to know everyone's name. I want to know detail-wise, like what are you going through? How can I help? How can we collaborate together? Kind of thing. Yeah, this is good stuff, man. Burnout.
Talk about that.
What is that?
Just
never.
Is it real? Is it like, you experienced it? If so, how would you overcome it? Or do you not believe in it at all? Like, what do you think about burnout?
Saw that in the dictionary once.
Yeah. Do you think burnout is real?
I do think it's real for some people. You know, we have this interesting thing in the military where we trauma bond. We do really terrible things together and have really terrible experiences, and we have this like trauma bond. But I think your heuristics and where you come from create perspective in your life. When you've done really hard things or been in situations, like for me personally, this is just me, where like your adrenaline is on 100 every day for consecutive weeks and months. Mm-hmm. The things that are problems today, like we're losing 80 grand on a flip right now. Like it just is what it is. Like I'm not stressed about it. I can't change it. I can't control it, and nobody's shooting at me. So I feel like I don't need to be stressed about it. I just need to execute on it. So I don't know if I'm unique in that sense. I don't typically feel a ton of stress. I do occasionally get a little burnt out, but I don't know. I think I got a lot of trauma in the past, so maybe that's why I don't get burnt out from a whole lot.
Yeah. You know, I didn't know this about myself till we started talking a lot about team culture and like took the culture index, and I learned about myself that I actually have a very small battery. And I thought I had a huge, massive battery, but Dave came on and he was like, hey, James, you have like a really small battery. And so you can work in like short sprints, and that works really well for you, but you only need like an hour break and then like you're back at it.
Yeah, you recharge really fast.
I recharge really fast when I sleep. And so that works out pretty well for me. I would say when I start to feel most burned out is when, I'm fully engaged. Like right now I'm fully engaged with you in this conversation. And then I go straight from here to a phone call and I'm fully engaged in that. And I go straight from that to something else and I'm fully engaged with that. And then I go back to my, my computer or my phone, and there's like tons of notifications, and a lot of people maybe like they need something from you, and it's all different competing things. You have to like triage your time all of a sudden, and all are urgent, all are important. It's like, man, that burns me out, I'd say, on the daily basis. But then we handle it, empower your great team around you, get it done, and then get ready for the next day. I also, this is my personal thing, might be not a common opinion, but if I do really have a lot going on in the business, wake up early, take care of things, get ahead on the weekend. I understand that may not work for everybody. You got family commitments on the weekend or whatever, but it helps me feel great to start a week on a Monday morning with my team, and all the slack is out of the trigger. You're ready to go and have a week full of massive momentum, and that was made possible by getting ahead on the weekend. I find that if I don't do that, I actually feel more burned out because it's just so hectic, like Monday through Wednesday.
Yep.
You just feel like you're catching up. So me getting ahead actually, it helps me personally.
So I'm actually I can run my RPMs on red for about 6 weeks. This is literally my timeline. Every 6 weeks, and I do what you're saying on the weekends, almost every weekend, but every 6 weeks, I will be so exhausted, I will do nothing, literally nothing on a Saturday.
Yeah.
I will not answer my phone, I will be watching football, I will do the most mind-numbing things possible during that day. I can't generate mental acuity to execute anything. Yeah. And then after I get a day like that, I'm golden.
Yeah.
So, but my wife, what's really interesting is my wife is very detail-oriented. Checklist. She has a command center at the house that's a weekly calendar, and every day has multiple checklists. For her, she's like, if I don't achieve this checklist in this order and it starts to stack, she just needs time and space to check her boxes. They could be the simplest things. It doesn't even matter what they are.
Yeah.
She just wants them off her list.
Yeah.
So if I see she's getting revved up, I will say, here, let me take this so you can get those things done. And if she can just check a few of those boxes, totally fills her right back up.
Yeah. Something I do with my team is, I'd say we do this on a weekly basis, but maybe sometimes we do it twice if it's a crazy week. Sometimes we don't do it at all. But I try to check in with them hey, how's your capacity today? I don't want to keep myself, I don't want to keep them at a 9 on a sustained period of time. So we try to balance the workload with the team as much as possible with that. For me, I think I do my best work in a sustained on a sustained basis. I do my best work and I can stay between a 6 and an 8. I do my absolute best work at a 9, but I can't stay there more than 4 days.
Right.
And I would just start I'll get short with people. Any little thing would just aggravate me and I'll be all frustrated. And then I'm not thinking clearly and solving problems well. So I try to avoid staying at a 9 for too long. But for me, that's not a whole week even. So
yeah, if I'm at a 9, I need a win.
Oh, dude, wins.
Like if I get a win, I'm automatically good. I can do the worst thing in the world if I get a big win.
A big win, dude. A big win just resets it back to 6.
Totally.
Yeah.
The wins help. If you're stacking a bunch of like micro losses that are just pulling your soul, it's like, oh my gosh, how long is this going to happen for?
Yeah, wins are great. A new real estate investor comes to you and says, hey, Adam, struggling with time management, delegation, use of my time. What's one tip you would give them?
Yeah, I'd tell them, number one, they got to get focused. They're probably distracted, looking at a bunch of other things. Determine what the revenue generating activity is, commit to it, execute on that, and that'll only cut everything else out of your days.
Nice. I love it. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, man. Great to come and be in person. I love it.
I love it.